His theory. A reporter was arrested during a news conference held by the Ohio governor about a train derailment that released toxic chemicals. He's being put inside a law enforcement vehicle for doing his job, for being a journalist. Let's take a look. This is something that happened in Ohio 2 days ago. I hadn't had time to talk about this until recently. Ohio, yes, a real place. Ohio, very much so, is currently impacted by toxic chemicals that were released out of a plane, out of a train. Yes, contrary to popular belief and what TikTok has told you, Ohio is real and no one has swag like it, except sometimes a little bit too much swag. A train. What the fuck was it? It was like a. Holy shit. Pennsylvania and Ohio. Gather leaves, topsoil samples, whatever you can to verify the fallout exposure zone from the intentional detonation of those tankers in East Palestine, Ohio. Store them safely and lawfully for evidence before it rains. This is psychotic, dude.
These aren't storm clouds. This is the fucking shit that they burn off. The fucking shit they burn off in East Palestine. This is not fucking storm clouds.
Also, one other thing I have to mention is that this keeps up with the wonderful tradition. Obviously, that dude is perfectly, understandably frustrated by the situation, but it keeps up with the wonderful tradition of America naming cities, but like then mispronouncing them. Even though it's like in this circumstance, it's like closer to how you actually say Palestine, like Philistine. So it's weird. It like almost did a loop. You know what I mean? Houston Street. Yeah. I mean, don't they have Paris, Texas? Cairo, Illinois is pronounced Cairo. Lebanon, Missouri. Lebanon. Wait, you made that up. It's actually called Lebanon. Okay. Sorry. God. I need to be serious about this coverage because it's like actually fucking serious. It's a serious story. Yeah, Notre Dame. That's another one. Oh my God. It's so hard. It's so fucking hard. Okay.
Look at it. This is over Darlington. This is their fucking success. That ain't no fucking storm cloud. That's the fucking shit from East Palestine. They're fucking controlled burn.
I mean, this is pretty wild.
Cold the
I haven't really seen a lot of news reports on this. Picture my uncle who's a first responder from a town over. Yeah. They're using the storm tracker radar to talk about the controlled release. So one thing that they did was basically get everybody immediately out of the area. Okay. So there was a train derailment that happened in East Palestine. Okay. This is where the story begins. And then an evacuation order followed for the residents. Okay. Now that evacuation order has been lifted in East Palestine. But according to the Environmental Protection Agency, air quality samples in the area, the wreckage and nearby residential neighborhoods have consistently showed readings at points below safety screening levels for contaminants of concern. What ended up happening was a controlled release of chemicals from train cars, which happened on Monday to minimize the risk of an explosion. And from what I understand, they are saying that it's still unsafe. And they included, they actually arrested a reporter on the scene as well. Insane we aren't seeing more coverage of this catastrophic derailment 2 months after greedy rail companies and Congress forced workers to accept the dangerous and unjust contract. Instead, the media trumpet news of a Chinese balloon down by a 400,000 missile. Yep. Norfolk Southern assures us the vinyl chloride spilling from the tanks in their derailed train and burning and turning into hydrogen chloride as it rises in the atmosphere and mixes with water vapor and turns into hydrochloric acid is not dangerous to humans more than 2 miles away. Why would I ever doubt their word? It's not like vinyl chloride in doses more than 1 part per million over an 8-hour period is extremely harmful to humans. And it's not like hundreds of thousands of pounds of resulting toxic acid in the air is bad for humans either. We people need to just trust that the folks at Norfolk Southern have our best interests at heart and not their own profits. Now, this is a really good assessment of the situation. I'm going to retweet it, as a matter of fact. This literally is a massive story. This is a gigantic story. And obviously the right thing to do in that situation, is engage in a controlled demolition for sure. But also the fact that we are not covering it, the fact that the news media has not covered it, like I haven't covered it because I've been talking about the fucking earthquakes in Turkey and raising money for it. But the reason why mainstream media has refused to cover it at all, and this is a developing story since fucking Monday, is weird. It's very weird. Especially when they got the town to evacuate originally. I think it's partially because people don't want to fucking ask questions about how this derailment happened. And that I think they don't want to ask questions about how this derailment happened and why things like this happen and how dangerous and damaging it is, especially because we kept talking about this during the fucking talks with the Biden administration and the potentially striking railway workers, which is that when train derailments occur, it is legitimately damaging. It is significantly more impactful than any other form of logistics. One, because these guys are carrying chemicals, pollutants, and the like that are necessary for survival. Okay? Absolutely necessary for survival. We're talking like shit that cleans your water supply. Okay? Chlorine that cleans your fresh water that you get in your cities. Okay? And without them, mankind would fall apart. American society would absolutely fucking fall apart, which is part of the reason why, and we covered the Canadian train derailment story before, the train explosion story before. For that reason alone, even if you don't give a shit about workers' rights from an empathetic and moral standpoint, you should care about it from the safety of all the other areas that could potentially get impacted. That's why railway workers were looking for, time off and hiring more railroad conductors and people that work on the railways. Yeah. I said this would happen, and it's already starting to happen. Just like I said, if they deregulate airlines and airline safety at the behest of corporations that want to raise their profit margins, you will start seeing more planes fall out of the fucking sky too. All matter of regulation is written in blood. All the subsequent problems, faults of prior lack of regulation that has caused the regulation to be written in the first place. Kurt Caller, the Ohio EPA, spoke during a news conference on Wednesday. He says some contaminants did make their way into the water, having an impact on fish in the area. He said actions were taken to minimize that, and all the data they've collected shows that drinking water is safe. The EPA is continuing to monitor the air and water. Free testing of water from private wells in the impacted area will also be offered by Norfolk Southern. The emergency evacuation order had been issued after a train carrying chemicals derailed around 9 p.m. Friday on the east end of East Palestine near the Pennsylvania border. The fire that ensued stretched from 1/4 mile along the tracks. The glow of the fire could be seen by 10 miles away. A controlled release of chemicals from the train cars happened on Monday to minimize the risk of an explosion. Norfolk Southern has said that the release was successful. To protect the environment, Norfolk Southern said it's prepared pits and embankments to drain the material during the release on Monday, which was then remediated. Cars have since been cleared from the rails. Those in the evacuation zone included a 1 mile radius around the train derailment fire. That was expanded to include residents within a 1 mile by 2 mile radius and includes parts of the Pennsylvania and Beaver County. Officials said they were concerned about the following locations: Parker, South Pleasant, the BFI Access Road, Taggart Street, North Pleasant Drive, Baylor Street, and East Martin of Pleasant. Cars involved in the derailment contained vinyl chloride, combustible liquids, butyl acrylate, benzene residue cars, railroad cars that previously contained benzene, the release stated, and non-hazardous materials such as wheat, plastic pellets, malt liquors, and lube oil. Nice. Fucking dope. The geologist, environmental consultant, just know that this is all part of PR damage control. Damage is done and complete remediation is almost impossible at this point. Yeah. But I fear that I assume, perhaps incorrectly, that if the damage was more significant than stated, to a degree where it would like be genuinely harmful and not just like cancer maybe 60 years down the line, I feel like they would have to tell people that they can't get back. Just know that whenever situations like this occur, there is always an assessment. And that assessment is not about like, how do we save the most lives? If you're thinking that that's the case, you're wrong. That assessment is, how much can we get away with and how much damage is going to happen versus if we admit fault, admit failure, openly tell these people this area is uninhabitable, how much money will we lose and what kind of backlash we will receive. You get it? That level of risk analysis is conducted at every point of capitalist production. Okay? Fines and legal settlements are always less than profits. Yup. Good comparison. East Palestine train derailment compares to 2012 incident in New Jersey. At first, officials said erroneously that the vapor cloud was non-toxic, changing the evacuation order to shelter in place. Therefore, the community protective measures were based on incorrect information about the released material, the report said. The report noted that the Occupational Safety and Health Administration mandates that no employee may be exposed to vinyl chloride at concentrations greater than 1 ppm average over an 8-hour period. That no employee may be exposed at concentrations greater than 5 ppm average over any period exceeding 15 minutes. And that no employee may be exposed to vinyl chloride by direct contact with the material. Workers can be easily overexposed without becoming aware of vinyl chloride presence because the odor threshold is too high to provide warning for hazardous concentrations. There you go. The report said that vinyl chloride irritates the eyes, mucous membranes, and respiratory tract. Extreme exposure could cause severe medical conditions, or even death. Chronic exposure could cause liver damage, skin, and bone issues. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has classified vinyl chloride as a known human carcinogen. But of course, that does not matter. You know what I mean? Okay, guys, I'm covering something else right now, but I will check the DM, okay? Please, calm down, everybody. Imposter edits. This is what they call a controlled release. The train derailment in Ohio in a little town called East Palestine had at least 5 tankers, cars full of toxic flammable chemicals. Apparently, the only options were to let it burn like this or it would go off like a bomb. Crews released toxic chemicals from derailed tankers in East Palestine. Who knows what the long-term damage from this spill is going to be? Surely it will be devastating for the environment, the wildlife, and the locals. Anyway, where were we? We started off the story by talking about, we started off from it ass backwards, but this is a truly unique aspect of the story that we're talking about, which is right here. News Nation reporter has been taken into custody for doing a live shot at the Ohio train crash press conference.
News Nation, it's all being recorded right now.
I hope it is. This is horrible.
Because you can't talk to people about doing their jobs.
Oh my God, I cannot believe this. This is horrible.
This is what it's like to be a reporter in
Evan, I'm so
2023.
sorry. Evan, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Sia.
Roll over, sir.
Can you please loosen this because it hurts?
That one's a little tight, so we
Oh
already
my God.
Thank you very much.
This is horrible.
Can someone help me?
Yeah,
Evan, I'm sorry. Oh
Are
my
you
God.
serious?
This is horrible.
A chloride water treatment plant blew up in LaSalle, Illinois last month, and no one talked about it at all. My family lives in the area, and it shook their house off its foundation. They did no evacuations and said there was no danger, even though the sky was yellow and the cleanup crew were in hazmat suits. This happens all the time. That's fire. Yeah. I mean, literally. Do we have a context for the arrest? Officials are saying they're charging him with criminal trespass and disorderly conduct, with releasing an official statement saying the Ohio government was speaking and was asking all the press to be quiet when News Nation was doing a live shot. So he was being an annoying streamer, I guess. Okay, that's valid.
After that evacuation order
I'm
and
kidding.
chemical hazards order had been lifted, there was that dangerous train derailment just last week. Take a look at this. Our correspondent, Evan Lambert, had been in the middle of his report. He actually had to.
I mean, this is a sad take from Central Committee, a.k.a. Michael from Pennsylvania. But it is the true one. Norfolk Southern announces new $10 billion stock repurchase program. Of course, they could not hire more employees to make sure that things like this don't happen. They could not spend some of their resources, their cash on hand, for example, on making sure that derailments never happen by modernizing their fleets or making repairs that are necessary in the same way that the unions were demanding, because they were too busy doing stock repurchase programs. Thank God Joe Biden also made sure that, this continues, and there was nothing. And he stopped the strike from happening. I live in Western Pennsylvania, and I've heard nothing about this train thing. Yeah, brother. Happening in your own backyard. Guys, why would the government do anything? I mean, the government's not there to protect the interests of the citizens. The government's there to protect the corporate benefits, the corporate profits. Control release and burn of the chemicals derailed cars begin at 3:30. Anyone still in the red area faces the grave danger of death. Those in the orange area face long-term injury. Please ensure anyone you know here has evacuated. Yeah, they evacuated everyone and then brought them back. Good TikTok explaining the situation.
hasn't been getting a lot of coverage, and the coverage that it has been getting hasn't been very good. So let's talk about the trail derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. East Palestine's about an hour north of Pittsburgh, almost halfway to Cleveland. Norfolk Southern has a rail line that goes right through town, and this derailment happened right on the edge outside of town on the border of PA and Ohio. Of the cars that crashed, 5 of them contained vinyl chloride. It's a monomer used to make PVC. The reporting on this has gotten vinyl chloride confused with polyvinyl chloride, the polymer made out of vinyl chloride. Now, the reason that this distinction is really important is vinyl chloride is very hazardous and very flammable. Polyvinyl chloride is a plastics that's used in like everything. The other thing about vinyl chloride is that it boils at 8 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's shipped in its liquid form. Meaning that when these trains crashed and these started leaking, they weren't just leaking liquid, but they were spewing boiling gas. So vinyl chloride is really toxic. OSHA has the permissible limit of how much you can be exposed to it during an 8-hour shift as a 1 ppm part per million, average over 8 hours. So prior to this, the biggest spill of this chemical was in New Jersey, where 1 train car and about 23,000 gallons of vinyl chloride were spilled, but it didn't catch on fire. Now, this crash in Ohio has 5 train cars. These kinds of tanker cars can carry between 25 and 33,000 gallons. Let's call it 250 to 250,000 pounds of vinyl chloride. That's per train car, 5 train cars. There's maybe 1 million pounds of this toxic chemical spilling into the ground and also boiling off into the air. But then it caught on fire.
That seems good.
This is where the reporting is really bad, because no one is mentioning what the byproduct of vinyl chloride burning is. Of the many byproducts of burning vinyl chloride, one of them is hydrogen chloride. Hydrogen chloride is really unstable and latches onto water, like just water vapor in the atmosphere, and that turns into hydrochloric acid. So right now, government officials from the railroad, both the governor of Pennsylvania and Ohio, are calling burning off the 1 million pounds of this stuff a success, but not mentioning that it means that we have hundreds of thousands of pounds of acid in the air, potentially. Now, ever since engineering school, I've studied a lot of industrial accidents. I just find it really fascinating, and organizations like the Chemical Safety Board, NTSB, and OSHA all have like really good reports available to the public. I think as a designer, it's really good to learn about mistakes. When looking at these kinds of industrial disasters across time, there are a couple things that are pretty universal across all of them. 1, the responsible party, in this case, Norfolk Southern Railway, always plays down the reality of the situation. Politicians also just repeat the same lines, and then news outlets just repeat the same. So all we're hearing is the responsible party's word.
Bro, I don't fucking...
Of East Palestine, Ohio. One of my
Where's part 2?
close friends started a GoFundMe. Her mother and stepfather both live and work there. This money isn't just for them, though. They're going to be working locally to get this money to the people and businesses that need it the most fastest. She's somebody that I trust a lot, so I think you can be assured that the money will go to the people who need it. The $25,000 goal just happens to be the same amount of money that the $60 billion company responsible for this disaster donated to the town.
25 grand? They donated 25 grand? Yo, dude. Oh, Türkler. I don't know if any Turkish people are still in the chat, but there you go. You constantly complain, understandably so, about how corrupt your government is, and your government certainly is corrupt. There's also an additional layer here in our government in the United States of America where like there is a unearned trust from the media. You at least have the understanding that your government's corrupt and it's fucking you over. In America, there's at least like a little bit. There's a little bit of fucking confidence. So like, when corporations do this kind of thing, government does not step in and do anything. Anyway, Let's finish this reporter being
to
arrested.
stop his report live on air because the governor had started speaking and they told reporters apparently to be quiet. So we had to stop his live report. Well, moments later, he was thrown to the ground by authorities, roughed up. He is handcuffed and arrested. As you're looking at this video now, you can see them speaking to him. But look, there he is. That's our reporter, Evan Lambert. He is on the ground. He is being put into handcuffs, and now they are taking him out. So he was trying to cover this press conference as it was happening.
Please.
He was covering it from the back of the room. He was speaking quietly.
My own fucking mods, dude. Someone got a photo of the reporter annoying the workers there. Apparently, he said, have you heard of TYT over and over again? It's weird. I don't know why this reporter kept saying, have you heard of TYT? I was so cop coded in that stream. You're right.
In the middle of rush hour, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine addressed this situation during that press conference. We want to listen to that, but first, let's just watch the rest of this video as it plays out. So obviously, you can see his photographer still with him there. And look, he's being put into the back of a law enforcement vehicle there for doing his job, for being a journalist. Again, we saw him put onto the ground, placed into handcuffs, escorted out of the building while he was reporting on a press conference to alert the people of Ohio in this area of East Palestine, Ohio, whether or not they would be allowed to go back into their home. So this was not a secret. This was the governor.
Yeah, he was being violent in his questioning. Duh, stop asking questions. Like, they did the right thing. Elon